Starting.
Right, we're going to start.
We're live.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There are still a few people signing in, but we are getting late, so I am going to start the meeting. So welcome, one and all. And I'm glad that we have room to accommodate you all comfortably, and I will now do the acknowledgement of country. The town of Bassendean acknowledges the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to elders, past and present, and acknowledge their continuing culture and contribution they make to the region. If you have not already signed in and registered, I'd please ask you to do so. Welcome to Fiona Perry, who is providing us and those of you at home with an Auslan interpretation of tonight's meeting. I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow council members who are in the room to hear your concerns and issues. We have an apology tonight, Councillor Wilding, who has a rather important alternative event that she needs to attend to. So we wish Emily and her partner well tonight as their family expands. I'll now go on to the Mayor's address. It is my pleasure to introduce this annual report that provides time to reflect on a year that defined Council's commitment to our residents. The functions and services provided by a local government are many, where catering to the priority aspirations of the broader community is paramount in planning for current and future generations of our town. Laying the foundations for a sustainable and resilient future, Council is committed to continual improvement as our team work to enhance the quality of our services. This district exudes wonderful community spirit, surrounded by beautiful natural spaces and precincts steeped in rich history. During the 23-24 financial year, we enjoyed gatherings that brought our community together, including the Music on the Green series, celebrations at the WA Tree Festival, acknowledgement of valued community members via the annual Community Awards, the community cinema, and so many other terrific local events. Our commitment to environmental sustainability continued, with the town securing several grants, including Nangara Waterwise funding plus urban forest restoration funding for Success Hill and Bindaring Park. This is in addition to the many annual programs such as Verge Transformation Rebates, Plants to Residents, Request a Verge Tree and Foreshore Restoration projects. Underpinning many of these programs are guiding documents such as the Tree Canopy Action Plan that provides a district-wide roadmap to environmental biodiversity now and into the future. With an emphasis on infrastructure upgrades, Council's commitment to strengthening financial capacity for future projects was evident via ongoing allocations to reserves. There were various projects progressed, including partnerships with main roads to enhance road safety, lighting and bore upgrades across various sites, installation of wheelchair access pathways in specific locations, and many other projects outlined in the annual report. Real progress has been made in the planning for other community spaces, such as the BIC Reserve Concept Plan, to be delivered over 2 years. I would like to express deep appreciation to my councillor colleagues and staff for their professionalism and tireless efforts. Whilst at times challenging, with difficult decisions made in the best interest of the broader community, it was a rewarding year in terms of collaboration and forward planning. Reflecting on the town's accomplishments, I also wish to express my gratitude to residents, community groups, local businesses and volunteers for invaluable contributions that support delivery of diverse projects and services. Together we will continue to foster collaborative partnerships, celebrate diversity and enhance our community's resilience. I would now like to invite the CEO for the town of Bassendean, Mr. Cameron Woods, to address this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome everybody. I know a bit of light reading, but if you do get a chance to read our annual report, there is an online version. I'd just like to commend all the staff in producing what I think is an award-winning annual report showcasing our magnificent achievements in this magnificent town. So, without further ado, my formal address in relation to the annual report is as follows. Throughout 23-24, our team has worked tirelessly to achieve outstanding outcomes for the town, including becoming an early adopter of a council plan, a community-led, integrated and streamlined approach, bringing together strategic community plan and our corporate business plan into the one document. We meet with that document on a quarterly basis and provide feedback to our councillors about how we're achieving on those targets. The official gazettal of Local Planning Scheme number 11, or LPS 11 as we like to call it, on the 26th of April 2024, marked a significant milestone in shaping the future of this district. This achievement reflects 5 years of dedicated effort by the town and commencing with the Bassendean Our Future community engagement initiative in 2019. And I commend all of those that are here tonight that participated early on in that particular community engagement program. In early 24, we also saw a reshaping of the structure of this organisation to better reflect the current service delivery to community, and that shaping was around trying to find waste, and we found about $750,000 in waste without affecting service delivery, and of that I'm particularly proud, and also of council for adopting those changes, which meant that $750,000 could be returned to asset reserves and project reserves rather than spend it. Other significant achievements including the adoption of the BRC Reserve Concept Plan, securing funding for the Jubilee Reserve Sports Lighting Upgrade, which is a $1.6 million project, commissioning the Ashfield Reserve Sports Lighting Upgrade, along with the adoption of our Tree Canopy Action Plan and the endorsement of the Ashfield Flats Master Plan. And significantly, we just received $2 million for that master plan, and for those that are here tonight that participated in that feedback and assisted, I would also like to thank you, because $2 million is a lot of money so we can get things started in that particular project. These successes would not have been possible without the dedication and hard work of our council and our staff, and I commend all of those that have played a crucial role in delivering for the Ashfield, Bassendean and Eden Hill suburbs. More importantly, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to our community for their continued support and trust in the organisation. Together we can achieve great things, and I am confident that our collective staff and community efforts will lead to even greater success in the years to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And now Mr. White would like to provide a statement about the annual report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everybody. I'll be pretty brief, but the 2023-24 annual financial statements form the second portion of the annual report, commencing on page 59. The financial statements have been audited, obviously, and the town this year received what's known as an unqualified audit report, with no findings made by the Auditor General and no control issues or recommendations, which is, I think, a reflection on the Manager of Financial Services and the hard work of her and her team. I don't propose to go through the financial statements in detail, but maybe just to highlight a couple of points. In terms of statement of comprehensive income and expenditure, operating revenue was $1.8 million higher than the previous year and $1.3 million up on budget. The improved position relative to budget was due to two things. One was higher than expected operating grants due to the early payment or the bring forward of a federal grant for $600,000. And the other was higher than expected interest revenue, with obviously interest rates remaining stubbornly high, also around about $650,000 higher than budget. Operating expenditure was $1.1 million higher than the previous year. It wasn't higher than budget, that was expected and budgeted for, and largely reflected increased costs built into a lot of the town's contracts as a result of CPI clauses and higher materials and labour costs, and also changes in legislation which resulted in significantly higher traffic management costs, which is a significant component of many of our projects. And lastly, in terms of income and expenditure, pleased to report that employee costs were on budget. It's our largest single expenditure item. There was an increase of 3.9% over the previous year, but that increase represents about half of what the increase would be, just with increases under the enterprise bargaining agreement and increases to compulsory superannuation. So that stabilisation of employee costs actually represents a reduction in real terms. And just in terms of the balance sheet, again, don't propose to go through other than to note that the town continues to put efforts into strengthening its cash position and its reserves, as been previously mentioned, and that we grew the cash position by another $500,000 again in the 23-24 year. And finally, I guess just to acknowledge the accounting finance team again. This is the first year that we brought the preparation of these financial statements in-house, and to receive an unqualified audit report after that was particularly pleasing. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are there any questions of the officer on the annual report? Otherwise, I will go to the next item on the agenda, which is the receiving of the 2023-24 annual report. Before I actually put the motion to the room, I'll ask if there are any questions or clarification required regarding the contents of the report. If you could raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, so we have the motion is that the 23-24 annual report for the town of Bassendean be received. This is your meeting, so what I would ask is there a mover for that motion? Mr. Bob Brown. And is there a seconder? Hi, how are you?
Sasha.
It's,
Sasha.
Tasha.
Sasha.
Sasha.
Read 'em up.
Okay, is there anyone against? No, it's just receiving, isn't it? Okay, I'd ask for all those who are voting to raise your hands. I believe you've all got little voting cards, so if you'd raise your hands and just hold them up there while we do a very quick count.
Mark it 30.
Yep.
30.
Okay. Anyone against? This doesn't matter. Okay. So we'll now move on to general business of the meeting. Now, just to advise everyone in the room, the administration have received a significant number of written questions from 2 electors. In the interest of time, these will be responded to in writing and form part of the minutes of the meeting. Mr. Yates, you have a number of multi-part questions and a number of notices of motion, 11 in total. On this basis, all of your questions will be responded to in writing, so the notice of motions can be addressed as a priority. Ms. Holly Alday, you also have a number of questions and statements. I note that these arrived after the close-off period. I will read out 2 of those questions that staff have prepared a response for, and the rest will be taken on notice and appear in the minutes of the meeting. Staff from the town's waste team have made contact with you in relation to your concerns and seek more information.
Will make.
Yeah, will make. Okay, apologies. Questions from the floor are limited to 2 per person and will be taken from the floor until question time is completed. Full written responses will be provided and included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. This is a reminder that this is not only this is not the only opportunity you have to ask questions. You're welcome at council monthly meetings and can submit questions electronically at the mail@Bassendean email address. As I said, questions are limited to 2 per elector. Statements are limited to a maximum of 2 minutes. And when you have a question or a statement, if you raise your arm, come to the microphone when I indicate who we will take next and state your name and address. That would be spectacular. So we'll move on to statements first. Now, we've received no statements through email. So I would ask if there is anyone in the room who would like to make a statement, if you could raise your hand. Mr. Yates, Now, Mr Yates, before you start, I note that you have brought a very large bag into the chamber, and I also have experience of you in the past having provided accessories during your speech. So I just caution you that this is an official meeting and that respectful behaviour is required. So, Mr Yates, if you would like to come to the microphone and make your statement. And has the someone turn on the microphone, thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, councillors and members of the general community. I think it's disappointing that some of the motions have been put as questions, whereas they should be considered by this particular meeting. And I just raised two. One is...
Mr Yates, I believe all your motions are included on...
but they should be, for example, if we take the position about a popular elected mayor, that really is open for this meeting to decide yes or no, whether they agree or not agree. It's not just leaving it a question that someone in the future will answer. It was really directed at this meeting to get an interpretation from this meeting if they agreed.
Okay, Mr Yates, this is statement time.
That's
There's
one.
a very
It's a
roundabout
statement
way, but
about how
Mr.
the
Yates,
questions
Mr.
are being
Yates.
dealt with.
Mr Yates, please. Now, I will allow the CEO to address this point.
Yeah, good evening, Don. I think you're making a statement, but I think we have 11 notice of motions on the agenda tonight from you that we are willing to hear. So I'm not sure why you think we're not hearing that. And one of those that we will hear is around that particular issue you just raised. So this is not the Don Yates show. This is an annual electors meeting for the electors, of which there are 8,000. You have 11 notices of motion, you've had a number of questions, and now you're making a statement. So, and I don't think you've actually understood that we do have your 11 notices of motions on the agenda.
Okay.
And you're actually speaking against the fact that what we're doing.
I note your answer. My concern was that considerations of those motions would not be made at this particular meeting.
That's not correct, Mr Yates.
I take
Your
that back.
motions will be
I'll
presented and voted upon by the people in this room. This is a meeting of the community and they will hear your motions, which you are free to present when we come to that item.
All right, just the second part of the statement I'd like to make. This is a collection of rubbish.
Mr Yates, I have indicated you are perfectly free to verbally articulate your concerns, but I am not going to tolerate any sort of demonstration, as I recall some years ago, where there was a large orange traffic cone which was waved around. I think that this is an official meeting of council. You, as a former councillor from years ago, are aware of the rules and regulations governing official meetings. So I would please ask you to put the bag down and to actually articulate your concerns.
The community were disappointed when a red-lidded bin was removed from the end of Thompson Road because it had been used, inverted commas, too much. And a similar bin was removed at the other end of Thompson Road. This is an example of the rubbish that I've collected because there is no bin to collect the rubbish. Now, the other thing was that a community member supplied a red-lidded bin to replace the one that the council had taken away. The unfortunate thing was that red-lidded bin that the council took away, the second one, was a private bin. So that's really a case of, I think that bin should be replaced. And I think I end my statement at that point.
Thank you, Mr Yates. You may take your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to make a statement? If you could raise your hand. If you come to the microphone. Thank you. And your name and address, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Jane Dundas from 13 Briggs Street.
Jane, I'm going to ask you to move a little bit closer to the microphone, so it's for the recording. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a statement of concern regarding the proposed oval development, and I'm using this as a very broad, open concern. That's my statement. Yep. Okay, but to articulate a little more. There are definitely concerns amongst the community. I'm a member of which holds these concerns also about where funding is going to be coming from in order for any further development beyond the 23-24 financial plan. Sorry, yeah.
That's fine, Jane.
yeah.
This meeting is open where you can ask questions about things beyond the agenda, the annual report, so that's fine. I could provide some commentary around that, but also the CEO could provide some commentary around that. Mr. CEO, would you like to?
I can.
It's a question. It's supposed to be a statement. We're not in question time.
Yeah,
so.
let's leave that till questions. I'm going. My statement is just that of concern and understanding that there is community concern.
Before you continue with that, I would ask if you have an understanding of the changes that were made to the plan at the December OCM by the councillors in this room.
I am aware of the changes regarding the residences no longer being included in the plan on.
Eastern side.
Thank you. Yes, yes, I am. Yeah, thank you.
Did you want to leave the rest for question time?
I certainly will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other ladies and gentlemen who would like to make a statement before we move on to question time? My neighbour, Carol.
Sorry. I'm Carol Seidel, 55 Broadway, Bassendean. My concern, and I think it for a lot of ratepayers, that we've been having continual community consultation come consultants regarding the development of the town centre and the football oval, and it's been going since about the 1990s. So I figure, how many times more do we need to do it when we already know the answers? And I figure that that needs to be taken on board, because what I'm seeing at the moment is a lot of money going spent on consultancies, and it's costing us, the ratepayers, serious money. And I figure we have the answers, we just need to be using knowledge that we've got, and I'll leave it at that. I won't be any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, any other ratepayers who would like to make a statement before we move on to question time? Okay, with that we will move on to question time. As I said before, we have several questions submitted in writing prior to tonight's meeting. Because of the number of questions, we are actually reducing the ones that we read out, and the rest will be answered in the minutes of the meeting. So I'll just go through the ones that have been sent electronically first, and then we'll go to the audience and your further questions, okay? So the first question was is from Clive Brown, and I don't believe Clive is in the audience. I haven't seen him tonight, okay. Of 2 Surrey Street, Bassendean. I'd like to ask a question relating to the proposed development of the Bassendean Oval and the construction of multiple units around one side of the oval. My question in 4 parts is as follows. Has it been stated by a representative of the town that development would cost the town up to $10 million? Mr. CEO, would you like to respond to these questions as I read them out?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the answer to the first one is yes. I made that statement at the public forums. It's up to a maximum of $10 million.
Okay. The second part of the question is, if so, how has that figure been calculated?
Question 2, the town's long-term financial plan and our forward projections about known projects and rate and other income determines our capacity going forward. And based on that modelling, the maximum that the town could afford to any project of redevelopment or any other project, for instance, would be $10 million.
Okay. The third part of the question, if not, what high-level estimates of the cost of the development have been made and how are they calculated?
So the calculation of that $10 million has no relationship to the development. What it does is it has a relationship to our ability to fund a project. we've just received 500,000 from the state government to move to the next stage of development after the concept plan, and that next stage will go through the detailed design, which I think answers your concerns, Jane, from the statement around. So we don't know what we're building yet, so we can't work out what we're costing. So the next stage of detailed design is schematic design, and I can see you shaking your head, but that, so quite frankly, we are building, on a journey to build something out there, subject to obtaining funding from other sources. In East Fremantle, for instance, they put in $7 million to get their development, and the rest was paid for by state and federal government. What we're saying in advance to our ratepayers is we can only afford to build $10 million, and we have an MOU with Swan Districts Football Club that says in partnership, whatever is a sporting facility for the club and for the Swan Districts Football Club only, none of the ratepayers' money will go into those facilities. That is why we're seeking federal and state money to build brand new football club facilities and community facilities.
The fourth part of the question, if the town met the cost of 10 million or some higher or lower figure, will ratepayers be expected to fund that amount? Well, clearly it won't be higher. So, Mr. CEO?
It clearly won't be higher. We put a ceiling on the maximum with the information we know today. So on average, I would imagine about 60% of that is actually direct ratepayers' money. The rest, our budget is, this year, for instance, our income was 15 million from ratepayers and our annual income was 25 million. So about 60% of our current income is from rates, and the rest is from investing activities, fees and charges, grants and interest, and other forms. So the answer would be that if there was 10 million on today's figures, about 60% of that would be considered ratepayers funding, and the other 40% would be considered income from other sources.
Just to clarify though, that none of that funding would be utilised for football only facilities, that it is for upgrades in the community facilities and landscaping and things like that, correct?
That's right, for those things that are in the public realm and for the good of the broader community.
Okay. So my next question is from Karen Dowling of 13 Ida Street, Bassendean. Is there an update for residents in relation to the Bassendean North Targeted Underground Power Project? I'll answer this one, given I live in that area. Western Power have provided an updated schedule to the Bassendean North project with detailed design completion by mid-April and provision of a co-funding agreement including expected project costs to the town by the 31st of July 2025. In other words, they are providing that. This will inform a report to Council by September 2025 with community information to follow. An internal working group has been formed involving finance and infrastructure key staff for preparation and management of the project. I will add that this project is from Western Power's projected timelines running at least a year behind. So it is good to see that they've actually looking at the detailed design and say that they're going to have that to us by the 31st of July. That is very good because we have been waiting a while. Holly Allday, question 11B Clawton Way. Who is responsible for holding the social housing entities accountable for their tenants and their consistent waste management issues? So this is one of two questions that we're reading out. The rest for Holly will be sent through. But Mr. CEO, would you like to provide
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Holly, is that you there, Holly? Hi, how are you? Thanks for the questions. Listen, my staff are going to make contact with you after this meeting to some of your issues are quite pressing, I understand. And those types of issues, and for all members of the public, if there's an issue with neighbourhood disputes or rubbish dumping or illegal dumping or graffiti that's happening, you don't need to wait for an annual electors meeting. Just hit us up with the phone or call our waste team and we can start responding. So the ultimate response and responsibility for the issue you're facing, given that their social housing is the Department of Communities, and we do have a role to play in the fact that if you're frustrated and you're not getting the answers you like, we do have access to call staff on your behalf, and we do it on a regular basis for other members of the community. It's not an easy fix. Homelessness and housing is a real issue, so people would love to have some of their neighbours evicted, but in the world we live in, the state government is not about making more people homeless, so trying to get compliance in a lot of these matters around rubbish and other things is difficult. But we do have regular contact, and the staff do have regular contact with managers at the department. We have had issues in that area you're talking about, and we're dealing with the Foundation Housing, which is a not-for-profit group that manages those houses on the state government's department, so we are aware of some of those issues. Yeah, so as I said, staff will reach out with you around a number of your issues and see if we can work through them.
Another of your questions, there's been a huge increase in graffiti and social behaviour, antisocial behaviour around Bassendean. What are the strategies being looked at to tackle this effectively? Again, I will ask Mr. CEO to provide information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks again for your question. I think Don Yates raised a similar question in his questions on notice. Look, I'm not trying to pass the buck here, and we do work closely with the police, but this technically is a policing matter, and we have the ability to remove graffiti on public land, and we do within a quick turnaround time if it's reported. What we have done in that location recently is we've installed at our cost, with a lack of funding from the state, a 10-month period of a mobile CCTV camera position based on information that we had from local residents and Ashfield Can to provide surveillance in that area. That piece of equipment has now been moved to Sex Hill because I think it was so successful we've moved some of the issues somewhere else. So, and I'm not just talking about graffiti, I'm talking about antisocial behaviour and vandalism. So we do look at bringing mobile units in which have a direct response rate to the police, and rather than coming to us, the reports go to the police. We've also meet with the police regularly, the officer in charge and our Director of Community and Place meet on a quarterly basis, and we identify and share information which may assist local police target particular individuals or issues. In relation to graffiti more generally, under the legislation, we have the power to not only remove graffiti from our own premise, but we have the ability to remove graffiti from the public domain, so somebody's house, somebody's business or somebody's fence. The problem is with that, we can do that, but if the person who owns that particular property refuses to pay the local government for that cost, then the ratepayer wears that cost. So at this stage, state agencies such as Western Power, Water Corp, that have assets out in the community, they're responsible for their own assets. The state government's responsible for their own assets. We're responsible for public assets that belong to us. And we're hoping that the public are responsible for cleaning up their own. But if they were to reach out to us and say, we're willing to pay for that damage, can you get your contractor to remove it? We would remove it quite quickly. But what we're finding is they want us to remove it for free. And at this stage, we just don't have those funds. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the conclusion of emailed questions, and I would now like to open it up to the audience. Again, if you have a question, please raise your hand, come to the microphone, name and address. We will only take a maximum of 2 questions per person until we've actually gone through the room. If there is any remaining time, then we may come back to you if you've got further questions. But I ask now if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to ask a question. Raise your hand. Carol, would you like to come to the microphone?
Hi, it's Carol Seidel, 55 Broadway, Bassendean. I'm going to start off with a really easy one. When are we going to be allowed to get our wood mulch from the depot, because it's been not available? The gate's been closed for several months, so I know a lot of ratepayers go there to get mulch and it's not happening.
I'll ask Shane. I think you'll be happy with the answer, Shane.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're doing our best to improve the communication firstly, because I think it has been a bit unclear in the past. So we're working on a better communication plan.
For
for the past week, the gate's been open.
Oh,
Yes, and there has been a pile of mulch, which is slowly being used, which is fantastic. And there's also been some bags of Fogo compost available on pallets in the last week, and they've also been taken as well, which is what we want. So the communication is out there, I understand. But we do ask people to contact the depot first, which is the phone number there.
so we need a book, do we?
No, not at all. Just, you know, I guess my message for residents would be if you want some mulch or the compost, phone first rather than drive down. It's probably the best thing to do. And I've got an officer down at the depot that will take the call and let you know it's there. But it's certainly been open for a week.
So, well, is it still going to be available on weekends? Because that's when a lot of people get.
It's another good question. Initially, with the communication plan, I said in there that we probably wouldn't because we can't control what's like. My fear is that we could lose it all to a landscaping company. You know, there's no control, no monitoring. But I do understand that, as I would, weekends is probably the best time. So leave that with me. I think we need to be a bit flexible.
Thank you.
And control that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I don't expect.
I will add to that, Ms. Seidel, in that a reason for ringing and communicating with the town staff relates to the fact that in the past there have been instances where some have come with big trucks and removed a significant volume of the mulch. So, so there are some limitations
They've
put on
been
top
ripped
of this.
off.
Yeah. So what the town staff have been trying to do is to find a way in which it's distributed more evenly, and so there has been a promotion on the town's social media site in the last week advising that mulch is available. There's also been some promotions for the Fogo material through some of the schools as well, where people have been able to pick up bags. A lot of that is done through social media. There's always this communication gap sometimes between.
Like, yeah, I'm not on Facebook.
Yes, yeah. It is a difficult thing because the prevalent way in which to communicate with many in the community is these days social media. So, and our Thrive magazine, but that only comes out every couple of months. Okay.
Okay. Next question. I don't expect the answers tonight, so it's some homework. All right. This relates to what I brought up before regarding our community consultation come consultants regarding the town centre and the football oval. So I can tell you when Landcorp did their community consultation, they spent $770,000 and decided it wasn't a good idea and walked away for various reasons. And I'm happy to give everyone, the councillors, that. I'll email. I would like to know, and I'd like it in writing from, and to, not only just for me, but also the current councillors, how much money has been spent on consultations regarding the development of the city centre and football costs, the overall costs covering the Bassendean dream, and also now the current Bassendean Oval proposal redevelopment consultation.
So, Ms. Seidel, the Bassin Dream was a budget allocation through a previous council. So most of the councillors who are here tonight did not do that budget allocation for the Bassin Dream.
Yeah.
So that is, and that Bassin Dream consultation came about because we were advised by the state government that we needed to do an extensive consultation to be able to kickstart our planning for a local planning scheme. So there was no getting around that. Then you've got the consultation for the Bassendean Oval. Again, the administration require a budget allocation from a council. So that budget allocation can be easily conveyed to you in the next few days because there was a small amendment recently, which I think was an extra $6,000, something like that. I can't remember, 6,700 or something like that. So what I'm getting at is that these consultations that are done through external consultants there is a public trail of the money that is spent because it's all through budget allocations done by the council and approved by the council.
Well, can the council staff provide me and the councillors that have information regarding Bassendean Dream?
Yep.
As well as current? That's what I'm asking.
So we'll just.
I don't expect answers tonight.
No, we'll take that on notice, but
Yeah.
the staff will come back to you on that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, if you'd like to come to the microphone. And again, close as you can, because you have a soft voice.
Okay, Jan Dundas, 13 Brigg Street. Okay, with questions. I was at the public information session, the evening session for the Oval redevelopment project, and I very clearly heard, as did every other community member there, the CEO, Mr Woods, state that aside from the ratepayers' contribution toward the Oval redevelopment project, that other sources of funding would include selling the library, the town hall and the senior citizen centre. Now,
Okay, Jane, I was there at both those sessions. First of all, one cannot sell land that is not owned freehold. The library, these facilities are on Crown land. You can't sell those, that's number one. Number two, selling is not the term that was used. Anything that requires, that's a community, yes, there are a list of items which in this next phase will be considered. The list is extensive. It includes potential childcare, it includes potential aged care, it includes a list that's very long. There is no way in the world that all of those things are going to end up at the Oval. However, during this exploratory stage of doing the geotech on the land, of actually looking at the topography of the land, looking at how this is all going to work, it would be remiss of us as a council not to explore all options for community facilities that might coexist down there in harmony with sporting facilities. Now, maybe some of those things are listed, and it is actually on the facts page on the town's website. It might be that some of those things are listed actually have no harmony with sporting facilities. However, they are listed, a broad form is listed for exploring options, and that is what the whole process is about. It's about exploring options, and that's the next stage. It's also open to further community consultation as well.
wonderful.
So I'll let them at CEO, Mr CEO, if you'd like to add to that.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, but we do have audio recordings. I will check them, but I can guarantee I wouldn't make a mistake like that. So what was said was we are currently on Crown land at this site, which is a premium site. The town has an aspiration for residential and mixed use commercial and retail on the bottom floors and residential apartments on the top floors to invigorate the northern end of town and bring Old Perth Road back to its heyday. To do that, we need to get out of the way. We are sitting on land that's owned by the government, freehold, and we've got ageing assets. The concept we spoke about was to free this land up for the state government to meet their housing targets and to generate income to offset the grant they give us to build new facilities at the football club. So there's no way that we can sell something we don't own. But if we sit here forever, this is what you'll see forever. You'll see a prime site overlooking BIC Reserve with ageing infrastructure and a council office. And I think we'd all like to see a commercial, thriving, CBD with shops and coffee shops and restaurants and people living upstairs and us out of the way.
Well, it's good it's not going to be sold for $1.
Sorry?
It's good that, unlike other community assets, they wouldn't be sold for $1. Yep.
That land was owned freehold by the town.
Understood.
I know the one you're talking about, and it was on the basis that it would be restored fully. We will see what the outcome is on that in the next couple of years, but in the meantime, I've explained that this land is not owned freehold, and it would be very much subjective to say that we would be, there's just no correlation between selling this. It would be a negotiation process. First part of the process would be to see what fits well there on the Bassendean Oval before you even look at any parcels of land. So, and as I said, in December, the plans were changed in reaction to community feedback. There was significant community feedback about the residential on the eastern side, and the councillors and myself acknowledged that feedback. The staff acknowledged that feedback. So there were already movements to recognise the community feedback and to adjust the plans accordingly. I'm not sure why anyone would think that we wouldn't continue in that vein going forward. Okay?
Oh, that's
Thank you.
wonderful, thank you. Sorry, as a second question here, is it possible for all future, open forum, public, community information sessions, I don't know, public consultations that might be done in community forums or meetings that are held for, let's say, to do with the Oval redevelopment? Can the recordings be made public, please?
I would suggest that there were some issues with parts of the recording down, mainly because people would not wait for the microphone, and there were parts that were not recorded. So I think taking on board for future meetings, we have to have a setup where like even now in this room, if people do not speak loudly enough into that microphone, the recording may not pick it up. So we're in an old building. Where we were having those meetings was an old building. So I think that we face challenges in respect to recordings and getting adequate recordings. Okay? Thank you.
Can I also add further, Madam Mayor, that the main issue was around privacy. When you're having a public forum, you need to warn people that everything is going to be recorded and used out in the public realm. And the advice we had legally was, unless you had permission prior, that was not possible, and it might also stifle the conversation and people's ability to make a comment, knowing that it could be picked up and shared on TikTok or the internet, or used in another way through artificial intelligence. So it's not as simple as you may think it is, and everything, we use it for minute taking. We have a copy here that's on the official record, so if there was a freedom of information request by you as a member of the public, we would provide it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with, yes sir, if you'd come to the microphone. Love to hear from you, name and address.
Good evening. My name is Gaetano Fosgozzola. I live on 164 West Road. I got a simple question. What's the future for the Bassendean Bowling Club? And what's the reason about the short-term lease?
Thanks for your question. The future is as long as you want it. The bowling club serves the community well. It has a place to play. We're about to adopt a new management and leasing framework. Council just asked for a period of pause where there was a short period so we could get our house in order and see if our current leasing framework and fees and charges were appropriate, rather than offer long-term leases that we could not get out of. But the bowling club, there is no danger, and we're about to adopt.
The danger is the 4 years lease.
Yeah, and council's about to adopt it this year, so the first thing we'll be doing is our staff will be reaching out to renew yours. But have no fear, we value what you do for the community.
Okay, thank you.
We love the bowling club. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ms Bremer? Oh, yes, and then we'll go to Ms Bremer first and then yourself, okay?
Jane Bremer, 47 7th Avenue, Bassendean. My question's in relation to the role of the town of Bassendean as a member council of the EMRC. And my question relates to the EMRC's recent consultation on a project that's called the Air Pollution Control Residue Project, which in other words is a Class 5 hazardous waste processing project. And so my question to the council is in relation to this project, which is part of the Rockingham incinerator, which our town, I believe, still isn't going to send their waste there. This is a facility that's in receivership. It's not operating. It's not. Under $740 million in debt right now, and this project was advertised recently by the EMRC. So my question to the councillors who may sit on the EMRC and the Town of Bassendean administrators, have you asked for or cited a financial and legal liability risk assessment for this project? That's my point, sorry.
Okay.
Adding a bit of tension, I know. I'll just go and turn it off.
So, I was worried there because it's the same ringtone as my phone. So I was thinking, gosh, that's loud from the next room. So thank you for turning that off, Jane.
Sorry to be a bit dramatic. But
Jane, look, I would like to take your question on notice. I know that we have asked the EMRC CEO to provide a response, so I think taking this on notice would be more appropriate at this point in time.
my supplementary question then is, if you take my question on notice, I wanted to put a motion to the meeting that you actually seek that. Would I be able to do that?
Yes, it's a community meeting. You can put up whatever motion you like.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we had a lady over there, yes.
Hello, my name's
Hi.
Nicole Cordingley. I'm from 109 Whitfield Street, Bassendean. My question is, with all the development and what's occurring on West Road, is there anything in place for traffic management? Because it is really quite dangerous, especially with the popularity of the last crime. Then I believe we're having a new daycare facility built within the same vicinity, as well as when it's the football season, we have a lot of traffic that congregates at the end of West Road and Old Perth Road. And then also, if the development occurs on the football oval, there's more traffic. And I just feel as a resident here, there's many traffic issues that just don't seem to be addressed, but more developments occurring.
Okay, so breaking your question down into a few parts, the Bassendean Oval project will include a significant amount of attention to potential traffic and parking. So that is into the future, and that body of work is not yet done. Okay, in respect to approvals that have been done in the past, the childcare was a development application by a private company, and it was determined at the JDAP or DAP, and it was within range. The traffic movements were within range of approval, otherwise it wouldn't have got through the DAP. So that is, West Road has a certain level of traffic that is considered appropriate, and West Road is not close to that level yet. But if you don't mind, Mr. CEO, shall I pass this over to Mr. Snedden? No, Mr. Asmus. Sorry, apologies. Okay.
Might need Alex to provide input, but so you just really quickly on the childcare at the time, and I haven't got the numbers in front of me, as the comment made by the Mayor was that the volumes on that road, as part of the traffic study that was done, indicated that the road wasn't anywhere near full capacity. It's a local distributor road, can carry up to 6,000 vehicles a day based on its hierarchy, and it was nowhere near that. So the volumes weren't too bad. There were sections where the speeds were excessive, which is unfortunately really common, not just in Bassendean, but everywhere. To me, it's a social issue. But what I can say to you is that Main Roads have come up with a new program that they call the Low Cost Urban Road Program, I think, and that's fully funded program where they look at precincts with the particular council, and they say this precinct has a high incidence of crashes, but rather than just targeting one intersection, they target the whole precinct. So we do something here, we'll do something there. It's around looking at the whole precinct rather than per intersectional street. So West Road's part of a precinct. They've already come to us and said they'd like us to consider taking their money and doing an investigation and look at putting in some calming devices potentially. It's one of 5 precincts that they've sent to us. Currently, we're working on the precinct in Success Hill. That was the first project that they put forward. It's in the current budget. We're looking at moving on that. Based on what I've done with my traffic team, we think the West Road area is probably going to be one of the ones we might do next, but I can't give you a year or anything like that. But it's certainly on the table being investigated, and Main Roads have actually raised it too. So,
Because I'm not 100% sure, but when you said about the 6,000 vehicles, but my main concern is with the parking. There's not very many parking facilities. You have a primary school right next to an extremely busy coffee shop, and within that same area you're then going to have a daycare, which is going to have people parking for periods of time, as well as people trying to get down, with also the shopping centre, which causes the bootleg of traffic. So I think for people that don't live in that particular vicinity, it doesn't seem to have the same problems for, like my street, Whitfield Street, has for the cycles. So now people divert from my street to Hamilton Road or West Road, and it puts excess traffic onto those.
yeah, so I probably misunderstood the question a little bit. So I probably talked about the traffic more so than parking. But I think as part of the childcare centre, we did commit to doing, once it was built and we saw where they were parking and the traffic, would do another assessment, a post-assessment, to see what impact that has, if at all. Bearing in mind it's close to the bakery and the school. So that's a commitment we've provided. So I'm not sure about the timing exactly, but that's something we're definitely doing probably in 25, 26, I'm assuming.
Okay, thank you.
I can probably add some further information to that as well for parking more broadly within the town centre. So as many of the community may know, we're doing a precinct structure plan for the town centre, and as part of that there'll be a transport access strategy, which also look at parking management more broadly for the town centre, so around the football oval, around the shopping centre, and around Old Perth Road.
Okay, I have 3 hands up, so I'm going to go to you, sir, first, then Mr. Woodward, and then the gentleman over there in the corner. Okay.
Aaron McKay, 33 North Road, Bassendean. My question's about the ranges and the cutbacks that we've had to their hours of operation. I'm just wondering why. I know you said previously that the Bayswater Rangers will be picking up the non-time frames that the town of Bassendean Rangers are doing, but from my understanding from the Rangers, this only relates to dog attacks and will not look at anything else that the Ranger usually does during the normal hours of operation.
That's not quite correct. I'll ask Alex Snedden, our Manager of Regulation and Planning, to respond. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, through you, Cameron. So yes, we have an existing agreement with the City of Bayswater to have a ranger service for priority matters as agreed in writing with the City of Bayswater, and that operates from 5 p.m. on a Friday through to 8:30 a.m. on the Monday morning, so they cover the weekend 24/7, and then standard hours of rangering service is 8:30 to 5, Monday to Friday from the town's perspective. In relation to the priority matters, it relates to dog attacks, animals wandering, priority parking matters, fallen trees on the roads. It covers a diverse portfolio that the Rangers generally undertake.
My understanding from Bayswater Town, well, Bayswater City's Rangers, was that they would not attend if people were camping illegally on reserves and parks in the town. I also spoke to your Rangers today, and they said that they cannot do anything about campers using motorhomes in the reserves and everything else because they're not there to see this or witness it. And I'm wondering why we can't use the town, if these are questions that have been asked by ratepayers as to solving this issue, why can't we use the town of Bayswater's Rangers to turn up at night, find these people and move them on? And I can't understand why we seem to be putting more emphasis on catching people parking their caravan out in front of their house than people living in their caravan on town of Bassendean land.
I think before I throw to Mr. Snedden, I think that I wouldn't suggest that there's more emphasis on caravans on verges as opposed to caravans next to the river. What I do know is that people who utilise these riverside public spaces also know the difference between town-owned land and government-owned land, and have had a habit of being, when they're moved on, simply moving 100 metres up onto state government-owned land. That is difficult to manage in multiple ways. So homelessness is...
I'm not talking homelessness. These people are set up with caravans and RVs, turn up at 6 o'clock at night because they know there's no rangers, and they camp in the car park. They're not camping on lawns, they're not in tents. These
Sorry?
people are well organised.
Apologies, I thought you were talking about the ones that camp on the riverbank. So I will ask Mr. Snedden if you'd like to take that one on notice maybe, or... Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I can please take that one on notice and provide a written response to that one.
So someone from the town will come back to you and engage with you directly on this particular item, because we'll need some additional information.
Can I just say, is it a public safety matter or an antisocial matter?
Well, these people are then doing antisocial activities at night. Obviously, they're freeing up their money from not paying rent to then use to buy alcohol, play loud music at night, and the police do not have the resources to attend to it. And they also take a bit of a view of, well, it's town of Bassendean land, so we're not really controlling it. So I don't really see any sort of enforcement of the basic rules that are govern, you know, for the rest of us.
So my comment would be, if our rangers don't have the authority to, apart from issue an infringement, they can't physically move somebody on, they don't have those powers.
They have the power to fine them for camping, don't they?
Oh, they do, and if they're a backpacker, that fine will never be paid. But the point I'm trying to make is, if it's an antisocial behaviour or public safety, the police have a responsibility to respond. Our rangers do not have the same powers, and if they're on the Ashfield Flats, or I think Jane Bremer's here tonight, there's somebody camping down at the Brighton site that the Department of Finance own, which is the state government again. We do not have, our rangers don't have the authority on land unless it's actually our land, freehold land. We don't have the Ashfield Flats. If you want to sleep down there, then that's a DBCA ranger needs to be called out. We don't have those powers.
Yeah, this is town of Bassendean land.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, yes, the police may not be able to attend because they've got more priority matters, but it would be nice to see the ranger arrive the next morning, find them camping or sleeping in their vehicles, and finding them so that they get the hint that they need to move on,
Okay.
not physically force them on.
Okay, so I'm going to draw a line under this, because I'm going to ask the staff to engage with you directly on this particular issue to get additional information, and to ask the staff to indicate to you how this matter can be dealt with going forward. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, one other quick question.
Yep.
Has the town looked at amalgamating with Bayswater? Had a few trying to put through an application for a building permit, and I know you had a couple of staff issues there, and it just seems like we're a tiny council that needs to amalgamate with one of the bigger ones to cut back on rates and provide a better service.
And I can say to you quite clearly that a bigger council does not necessarily provide better service. I can guarantee you that a bigger council does not necessarily provide you with better service. If you have had an issue in regard to planning, then your avenue is to contact the administration and to outline your issue so that it can be addressed. I think that amalgamation, that was dealt with several years ago and was completely rejected by this community. I can also suggest to you that I've done an analysis of waste charges between us and one of our neighbouring councils, and I know that our ratepayers pay $60 less per annum for waste charges than one of those neighbouring large councils, and that really does amaze me, because we're a small council and we provide double the number of services, and yet one of our larger councils are joining us is charging their ratepayers a significant amount more. So you can make all sorts of suggestions about the values of whether we should amalgamate or not, but until you drill down into all the multiple details, it is very difficult for anybody to actually make an assessment that's accurate. So I would suggest to you that no, this council has not in any way, shape or form considered amalgamating with Bayswater.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Woodward, 77 Whitfield Street, Bassendean.
Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. I didn't come along with a question tonight, but something that was said has prompted one. It was yourself, Madam Mayor. You mentioned that a majority of people these days get their information via social media. And the town of Bassendean has a Facebook page with nearly 10,000 followers. I just wanted to check if Mr. Woods was aware, and this is me assuming that the communications team is answerable to the CEO, whether or not Mr. Woods was aware that organic reach on Facebook these days, namely if you do not pay to push a post out further, organic reach on Facebook these days is just over 2%. It's 2.6 was a stat that I could just find, meaning that for anything important, such as mulch is available, that gets communicated via the town's Facebook page, that approximately 200 people will see that on a good day.
I think that you and I have spoken about this in the past, and we both are aware that Facebook algorithms and the manner in which Facebook operates is a interesting beast. We can discuss this, the administration and councillors can discuss this going forward, but I take your point that the manner in which Facebook are operating now does monetize reach. So if you pay for a promotion, you will get a bigger reach. If you have visual contact, you'll get a content, you'll get a bigger reach. Yes, I do understand exactly what you're saying, and I would be happy to discuss this with the staff and the councillors going forward.
The question, however, was whether Mr. Woods was aware that it's roughly 2.6% that you'll reach.
Thanks, Ben. I wasn't aware of the percentage, but and I think we'll continue to agree to disagree with the use of social media by a small local government. We simply do not have the resources, and we don't want to encourage instantaneous communication with ratepayers. We want our ratepayers to engage in the systems that we have, and for our record-keeping system to be able to keep up with that. When we're pushing something out, we're hoping our 10,000 people will share it. But what we don't want to engage in is people wanting to communicate with us in real time and expecting an immediate response in sometimes to issues that can be dealt with through the other channels. We're just not set up for that, and no, I don't think we're going to be going there anytime soon, because one person on staff in communication is doing an awful lot, and to monitor social media and to be responsive to the community 24/7 almost, whilst might be an expectation for some, is not the way that we'll be doing our business.
So can I just ask a question,
You
Mr.
can,
Woodward?
but
Because
respectfully, my question wasn't about two-way communication. It was about communicating important things to the public. And if Facebook is the main way that that is done, yet it's only reaching 2.6% of people who follow the page, I fail to see how that's an effective form of communication.
So my question has some relevance to that, because if the town's Facebook page is an information channel and those posts can be shared, is that not in itself advantageous? Because if you look at the 6054 site, you cannot share posts from 6054 to other pages, and yet people can take the town's post and share it to 6054 and other pages. So there's a little bit of a interesting, well, it's a bit like snakes and ladders really, with the way in which you can share posts and some places you can't. So I'm not sure that there is going to be a definitive answer that solves all the problems of communication that relate to Facebook. I would like Facebook to be a little bit more like it was 5 years ago, but never mind. That's my sad little comment. But in any case, I mean, if there are other mediums where you believe that we could make more impact, I'm always open to having a chat with you over coffee.
I take your point on sharing, but one needs to see a post before they can share it.
Well, okay.
And at
Mr.
present,
Woodward,
roughly 98%
Mr. Woodward,
people.
we are going to go round
just
in
leave it.
circles. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, sir, right in the corner. We're going to make this the last question unless there's something burning to make it to this gentleman and this lady. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Bruce Kay, 11 Earls Ferry Court, Bassendean. First of all, I apologise that I haven't put the effort in before this meeting to fully read the financial statement. I've done a quick perusal of it, and it comes back to my favourite question is, what is the status of Town Planning Scheme 4A? And I cannot find a reference in the financial statements to things relating to Scheme 4A. And the last time we did something, there was an officer on council who had 2 land matters to sort out, and he said one of them was being dealt with. What is the statement of the closure of Scheme 4A?
I'm going to ask if we could take that on notice, because I think the response required needs to be outlaid in writing for you, and I think we're close, but we're not as close as we'd like to be. So if you don't mind, the officers will be in contact and provide a written response to you.
Well, I do mind, but I look forward to the response.
Okay.
I've only waited 15 years. And what's another
Mr. Kay, and I will be celebrating with you when we finalise that scheme. Ma'am, if you'd like to come to this is the last question, ladies and gentlemen, because we have gone well over time with questions.
Hi, I'm Sarah O'Reilly, 47 North Road, Bassendean. I would like to know what serious discussion the council has had about the mosquito issue in Bassendean. Now, this is a beautiful place to live. I've got a beautiful property backing onto the river. Cannot go outside. Cannot go outside. So my question to you all is, what pressure are you putting on the state government or the Department of Health about the issues that come along with mosquitoes, and what serious measures, besides one guy going around putting a little bit of larvicide around the entire town of Bassendean?
That's actually not correct. Okay? I'm going to cut you short there and say that is not correct.
I'd love to hear a response.
Our staff actually do checks on the activity traps that are up and down the river. The checks indicate when mosquito numbers are increasing, also indicate what type of mosquitoes are breeding in the area. Now, the last 2 breed outs, the first one was on the 14th of January, and then we've had one which is about 4 days ago. Those breed outs, our activity traps indicate that those breed outs have not happened or originated on town-owned, operated land. We are, as a council, a member of 5 other councils in the CLAG, is it CLAG group? All right, which is overseen by state government. The state government actually provide best practice methodology. So larvicide is the preferred treatment in this region. I would suggest to you that monitoring is the most important phase, and if monitoring is not undertaken in a very diligent fashion by all members, I think that is a problem. Are our council putting pressure on state government and other councils? Yes. I'm not entirely sure. We put pressure on state government for some years before we actually got included in the drone program, which was started in Bayswater and has now expanded to use in the City of Perth and in Ashfield Flats. I would like to see the drone program expanded to all the Eastern Region councils, because when a problem is identified, it delivers the product far more quickly. It delivers the product exclusively to infested areas, not to uninfested areas. So that means that, you know, there's less chemicals being spread around the entire place. This is why, you know, fogging and aerial spraying are problematic in the metro area, because it is a sledgehammer approach that kills everything, including the natural enemies of mosquitoes, which are dragonflies, microbats. All of those types of things can be affected by wholesale application of chemicals. So I reject the comment that the town is not doing enough. I think the town is actually engaging in best practice, and I think that we could definitely show off our neighbours a thing or two about how to engage in best practice. And with that, I will, if the officer would like to provide any additional information, I'm happy for that.
The second part of my question would be, well, if that's the case, I had an email from someone from the town saying that they were going to be planting all these big species shade trees over an area straight outside of our house that is currently flooded daily. So the water rises, the water goes down. Now, I've been told in front of this area there's going to be all these species of trees planted by this Bassendean planting group. My concern was that providing shade over areas that are currently flooded daily is going to lead to mosquito infestation in somewhere where you say there is no mosquito infestation, which I reject that as well, because to say that they only breed in Ashfield Flats and not outside is No, that's not what I said. No, but what I'm saying is the town should be my question is, why would you agree to planting big shade trees which over areas which are waterlogged, which require water to dry out during the day to kill any larvae that's there? Why would the town go and agree to planting all these shade trees and ignoring our concerns?
Okay, I'm going to allow, well,
I can probably talk to the mosquito element first and then let Shane talk to the planting, or perhaps take that question on notice. I'm not too sure on that one.
the tree item I think should be taken on notice, but the mosquito issue, if you could address that, thank you. Oops.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I think you covered that pretty well in terms of the town's mosquito treatment program. So it's not just our health officers that are going out there. We also utilise the City of Bayswater's mosquito control team, and we are at least monitoring the Ashfield Flats, which is one of the largest areas in the metro area for mosquito breedouts, at least twice a week. And when there is high larvae activity, we treat it very heavily, and we've had a very good success rate for that. Although larvicide isn't perfect, it only has about a 90% kill rate or effectiveness. And if the Ashfield Flats, if there's a high tide and the whole area is inundated or along the river, such as Point Reserve that we had last week with the high tides from the cyclone up north, if there could be roughly 1 billion mosquitoes coming out, we get 90% kill rate. It's still a pretty significant amount of mosquitoes that are still going to emerge. And it's, unfortunately, we can't eradicate them all, but we are very comprehensively in our treatment program, and we are very good at it. We've had really low larvae numbers, but the prevalent mosquito that we are getting is Aedes vigilax, which is a salt marsh species, which can travel up to 40 kilometres with the winds. So it's not necessarily coming from the Ashfield Flats, but along the river, and it's not just our residents that are being affected by it, it's all members along the Clag. I live in the town of Vic Park, and I'm having really bad mosquitoes as well. It is an unusually bad season, which is also attributed to La Nina weather patterns. So last year it was El Nina, and it was a quieter mosquito season. The 3 years before that, it was La Nina, and it was a very heavy mosquito season. So there are many factors that impact that, but we do work with the Clag to treat the river, and we are actively pushing with the other members of the Clag to do better at our sharing of information in relation to larvae scoops and how many larvae we're doing, because that's obviously going to be indicative of a breed out in a couple of days, and sharing chap counts sooner rather than later, rather than a week after the fact. If Belmont, say, trap on a Tuesday and we don't get their trapping results till the following week, but they're high, they share them the next day, which generally is available to them. We can then prepare our residents, if it's a strong breeze blowing our way, that they're going to be impacted. So we are actively trying to pursue with the CLAG better outcomes for our community and their communities as well, because everyone along the river is being very impacted by particularly this season and the last two breedouts in this month.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I just want to make sure that you take into consideration that planting large trees over the flooded area that you're talking about is not a smart move when it comes to mosquito larvae.
I'm going to ask for the staff to engage with you because we are getting late and there are motions that we need to attend to. And having 11 motions already on the books before I even get to the audience, I'm sorry, but we are going to move on to the next section, which is the notices of motion. Now, Mr. Yates, given that you have the most notice of motions, if you'd like to come up and present your notice of motions, by which stage you'll be moving them, and then I'll ask for a seconder, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first motions are really quite simple.
If you could just read them out, sir, and I'll ask for a seconder. There'll be no debate unless we actually have opposition to the motion.
That the town of Bassendean join category 1 and 2 selection of mayor by having a popular elected mayor every 2 years.
So you're not reading them out in order, is that correct?
I don't have a copy of that particular thing, even though I requested it.
Can we provide him?
All right.
There you go, Don.
Okay, well, to start off with, the town of Bassendean restore the graffiti removal policy that aims to remove such degradation on public or private buildings, signs or structures with minimum delay within the town of Bassendean. There was a budget.
Okay, sir. I'll now ask if there's a seconder. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Jane Dundas. Okay. Now, I'll ask if there's anyone against. Okay, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your cards. Okay, and if you could hold them up for a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 17? 18.
Plus Dom,
19. Okay, all those against? I declare that carried. Okay,
Thank you.
Your next motion, sir?
The town of Bassendean reinstall removed rubbish bins at multiple locations within the town of Bassendean to reduce public waste issues and improve community safety.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you. Your name, ma'am? Cheryl Simmons, okay. Do I have anyone against? Okay, I'll put that straight to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your cards.
20.5. 21.
21. All those against? None? Okay, I'll declare that carried. Third motion?
That the town of Bassendean return use of the positioning statement "Home by the Swan" to be part of the town of Bassendean's logo in all instances as originally intended.
Do I have a seconder for that? No, that lapses for lack of a seconder. Mr. Yates, if you'd go on to number 4.
That the town of Bassendean change the selection process of the mayor every 2 years to be by a majority public vote at the same time as council elections, so a majority of the community eligible to vote can select a person that reflects their views going forward.
Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, ma'am. Sorry, what was your name again? Sorry. Sarah O'Reilly. Do I have anyone against? Okay, we'll go into debate. Mr. Yates, if you'd like to start. And it's a 2-minute debate.
The councils who are classed as category 1 or 2 already have a popular elected mayor filling that position. Category 3 and 4 is an option. If I was to get 250 signatures, we can change it to a popular elected mayor. Simply placed, those people who wish to be mayor can put up a policy as to what they want for the next 2 years, and the community has the opportunity to pick who they'd like to be mayor and which policies they'd like to follow.
And the seconder, would you like to speak to this item? No? Okay. Person against, would you like to come to the microphone and speak against? Thank you. Mr. Yates, if you take a seat for a moment.
Peter Robinson, 3 Ashfield Parade, Ashfield. This sort of idea springs up from time to time, and it basically is not a reflection of how Australia works. We have a federal government that works on a Westminster system. We have state governments that work on a Westminster system, and even to having the Mayor of Perth elected by the people instead of by the councillors basically puts in place a situation where you can have a mayor or a president elected by the people who does not have the support of his council or her council immediately. As a former councillor in another area, our council elected the president at the first meeting after the election, and that president had the support of the majority of the council from day one. I do know that in an adjoining council, the mayor was elected by the people and he had no support from council. And therefore, for that period of time, for 2 years, or might have been 4 years now, 2 years anyway, it was a fractured council who was not supporting the elected mayor who was elected by the people. If we do it federally, if we do it state, we should do it at local government as well. Use the Westminster system where the leader of the council has the immediate support of the councillors who are representing the people. And as far as putting a program out in advance, that's an interesting proposition, but if you put a program out in advance that you want as a mayor and your councillors don't want it, it's a complete waste of time. What we should have is a council representing all people and selecting the person that they want to be their leader. So I urge people to think really carefully, pause, think about this. Is it what you want? I don't think it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yates, close.
Yes, I thank you very much for your comments. I guess when it comes to the community, not all the councillors who are elected for 4 years carry forward what the community wishes to actually have adopted. Things change, and I think it's disappointing that the community does not have the chance every 2 years to look at those people who represent them as mayor and pick that person and their projects and what their ideas are. And I guess it's up to the mayor in that situation to convince their councillors to align to what the community wants. In our case, we have 7 councillors at the moment. After 2 years, they may not necessarily align with the community's wishes. This is a way where the community picks the person who represents them and their wishes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of Mr. Yates' motion? We have 3. All those against? 21. 20. Okay, Mr. Yates, that motion fails. Okay, it obviously, which one are we up to? Number 5. Mr. Yates, if you'd like to read out number 5.
It relates to planning.
Just read out the motion, sir.
That the town of Bassendean recognises that an older average population that cannot walk as far as a younger population is to be supported by including mixed-use planning options in all areas classified as R40 or higher densities, and encouraging community services like the corner store. In other words, it's no use having high density if
Mr. Yates, you're entering into debate. Mr. Yates, We require a seconder first. You know that as a former councillor. Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Jane Dundas. Do I have anyone against? Okay, I'll put that straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's 2. All those against? I'll declare that carried. Okay, by a very low number. Okay, number 6, sir, if you could read that out.
That the town does not withdraw from participating in local tourist events like the annual Avon Descent again, and starts planning for participation in the 200th anniversary of White Settlement in the adjoining Guildford in June 2029.
Okay, Mr Yates, do we have a seconder for that? That lapses for a seconder. Mr Yates, if you'd move to number 7.
When we're looking at dealing with main roads, this particular motion concerns
Mr Yates, just read out the motion, please.
the Australian standards and endeavours to comply in all instances, including minimum street lighting, safe walking grades, road entrance minimum widths and grades, masonry walls, bridge protection of supporting uprights, and trees and development sites. These are the Australian standards that I believe the council should align with.
Okay, Mr Yates, we'll wait. Have we got a seconder for that item? Okay. Okay. Do we have anyone against? Okay, I'll put that straight to the vote. All those in favour? Ten. 11. All those against? I'll declare that carried. The next one is number 8.
That the town of Bassendean requests that main roads reinstates the traffic control signal removed about 2003 at the intersection of West and Guildford roads as a matter of some urgency, so allowing safer traffic exit from Thompson Road.
Okay, Mr Yates, I'll ask for a seconder. Do we have a seconder? Okay, and do we have anyone against? Okay, I'll put that straight to the vote. All those in favour? 5. Anyone against? 2. Okay, I'll declare that carried. The next one is number 9.
That the town of Bassendean requests that main roads with the WAPC completes the widening of the identified rapid transit urban corridor, namely Lord Street, and details related works before the end of 2025, as per the March 2018 gazetting of the Perth and Peel at 3.5 million study update that was also endorsed in the subsequent Bassendean local planning strategy.
11. Okay, Mr Yates, you know as a former councillor that you don't enter into debate until we have a seconder or we have debate happening. So if you could just read out these motions. Now I'll ask for a seconder. Do we have a seconder? Yes, sir. Okay, do we have anyone against? Okay, I'll put...
name for the seconder, please.
Sorry, sir. Your name? Robert Giesche. Okay, just checking. Okay, do we have anyone against? Okay, so we'll enter into debate. Mr Yates?
Thank you very much. The WAPC, the EMRC and related bodies over the last number of years, including main roads, have looked at Lord Street as an urban corridor that gets congested. They've removed green arrows at the corner of West Road and Guildford Road to try and relieve the congestion in West Road and Guildford and Lord Street. This is an example where in 2018 it was identified that Lord Street is an rapid transit urban corridor, and this is just implementing it. And I guess by what is interesting is tonight we hear that Main Roads is talking about Success Hill and possible road improvements. Now, this is the first time that I've heard about that particular action. If you go back to 2017, there's been years of waiting for Main Roads to come up with solutions, and there's been at least one person killed at the intersection of Thompson Road and Guildford Road because of the inaction.
Mr Yates. I'll let that pass, but you know as well as I do that that is actually a misstatement of fact. But anyway,
The
let's...
person died at 4:30 in the afternoon on a motorbike.
Mr Yates, please move on with your debate.
All I'm saying is it's basically requesting that Main Roads and the town of Bassendean come up with a road solution for the urban corridor, which is Lord Street, and it also has benefit to the R160 higher density area of the Success Hill South precinct.
Okay. Okay, so your seconder, did you want to speak to this item? No? Okay, and the person opposing, would you like to come to the microphone and speak against it?
I made a mistake.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your cards. Thank you. 4, 5, 6. 6. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, we have 2. Okay, so I'll declare that carried. Mr Yates, the next one is number 10.
That the town of Bassendean establishes a committee to receive, consider and select public-private partnership proposals to be voted on by the Bassendean community within a reasonable period of time frame, with a majority to decide as to their acceptance with or without changes to advance the goals of the Bassendean community. Can I explain what a public-private partnership
Mr Yates, we'll ask for a seconder first. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Okay. Okay, do I have anyone against? I will now ask him to provide, but we need a seconder before we actually proceed with that. Okay, Mr Yates, provide a very simple overview of that because that is quite ambiguous.
A public-private partnership is an arrangement where private capital can support a council like Bassendean to provide services like an overpass from the Bassendean Oval redevelopment to Lamb Street. In other words, it's a service that can be provided, for example, funded by advertising on the overpass. Now, if you take, for example, the Ashfield railway station overpass, it would be relatively easy to put electronic signage on that overpass funded by a private arrangement, and the revenue from that advertising could then go to a community organisation like the Ashfield Can.
Okay, Mr Yates, you've given an explanation. I have the mover, I have a seconder, yes? Yes. Okay, do I have anyone against now that we've got that explanation? Okay, so did you wish to enter into debate given you've already given an explanation or not, Mr Yates?
All I'd like to say is that Bassendean is a smallish community and there are resources that could be channelled from a public-private partnership to, inverted commas, fill the gaps and help the community advance courtesy of other sources of finance.
Okay, I'm not going to interfere in this, so seconder did not wish to speak. Would the person opposing like to speak? Okay, thank you. Okay, can I have, I'll put this,
I actually oppose, and I just want to say...
you may speak opposed because we go through, sorry, I didn't realise. If you would like to, Mr Yates, would you like to sit down and let Miss Brimmer... yes, we actually need it for the recording, Miss Brimmer. I'm sorry, but that's
I just want to say that it's a very wordy motion. I think it's very confusing for this meeting to be able to understand what it actually means. And I actually have faith in the town of Bassendean that they're already doing this, so I don't support the motion.
Okay. Okay, so Mr Yates, you can close now, please.
Thank you. I understand Jane Bremer's position, but at the end of the day, a public-private partnership would be a proposal that would come to the council for consideration. If they thought the cause was worthy, and for example, supporting overpasses for pedestrians to cross over Guildford Road, for example, more safely, then, and it was made possible with a public-private partnership, then that's the, I guess, benefit, you might say, of such a commercialised sort of situation.
Subject to it being compliant with Local Government Act and the Minister. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour? Mr Yates. Is that it? Yes. Okay, all those against? Eleven. Okay, so that fails, Mr Yates. Okay, we go to the last one. If you'd like to read that one out, Mr Yates.
That the town of Bassendean studies community land titles for both individual homes and strata title apartments using town-owned land for opportunities for community members to own their own homes on such land parcels under attractive long-term arrangements where the land is not paid for at the time of construction and there are long-term superannuation-like benefits for the town of Bassendean employees. This report, when completed, to be voted on for or against by the committee as appropriate or at an appropriate referendum. It's known
Okay,
as
Mr
community
Yates,
land titles.
again, I require a seconder before you can actually engage in debate. So please, do I have a seconder for this motion? No. Okay, so that fails, Mr Yates. Okay, thank you, Mr Yates. That brings us to the end of your motions. Mr Bob Brown, you have a motion, and again, Mr Brown, we're putting it up on the screen, if you'd like to come to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And,
if you could read it out, Mr Brown, that would be great.
Pardon?
If you could read out the motion, that would be excellent.
So I can't thank you?
Oh, yes. But I thought you'd finished, thanking me. Mr Yates,
It was meant to be a joke, okay?
Mr Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Where I come from, they're much bigger and carry you away.
The council consider minor amendments to the Ashfield Flats Master Plan in order to, 1, explore and implement alternatives that will enshrine the existing Riverside Heritage Trail linking Ashfield to Bassendean from the Roy Hookway fishing platform to the Sandy Beach Reserve. And furthermore, acknowledge the distinction between the iconic Ashfield Flats wetland and the historic dairy farm and pasture land contained within Ashfield Flats that extends the length of the riverbank from Sandy Beach Reserve to the Chapman Street Drain Timber Bridge.
Okay, so Mr Brown, I'll now ask the audience if we have a seconder for that motion. Okay, we have, sorry, Jane. Jane, okay. And do I have anyone against?
I could go against just to give Mr Brown an opportunity to speak to it.
I think we've got someone who's genuinely against here. Val? Yes, okay. So what we'll do is the process is Mr Brown will speak to it, the seconder may speak if they choose, and then we go to the person against. Okay, Mr Brown?
Thank you very much.
And you've got 2 minutes, Mr Brown.
I speak on behalf of the committee and membership of Ashfield Community Action Network. You know the notice of motion. We have a perspective on this. As you're aware, since the federal government approved a grant of almost $2 million to the town to implement key components of the Ashfield Flats Master Plan, the town is to be congratulated on securing the grant. It's a wonderful thing. And Ashfield Can too has a long and abiding interest in the health of this iconic wetlands. The master plan was adopted in full, with full support of the council, following a persuasive presentation by its government proponents and external consultants. The plan was presented as a definitive document based on exacting science. However, following the publication and acceptance of the master plan, at a strongly supported community meeting hosted by Ashfield Can, we became concerned when the plan's manager declared the master plan should not be considered conclusive but rather no more than an unfunded concept plan. Inside of this and subsequent events, the implications of these two contradictory perspectives cause our network concern and should concern our community and our council. For people unaware, there is a vexed past to this issue, and it should be noted that a hastily constructed post and rail fence constructed in about 2018 was immediately removed from the Ashfield Flats pasture land. The removal followed strong community concerns expressed at a packed meeting convened by our local Member of Parliament and hosted by the town. The master plan, at its heart, seeks to reintroduce the pathway and fence designed not to prevent access to the wetlands as intimated.
Mr. Mr. Brown, you're running out of time. I'll give you.
But rather, thank you very much, Mayor, if you indulge me, it's only short, but rather to fence off the river, hence the intended fenced and narrow pathways leading to the narrow openings on the riverbank. Once removed, our unique riverside experience will be gone forever, forgotten by future generations. This said, people strongly agree with the objectives of the master plan, and have concerns about the execution of those objectives, particularly the planned future removal of the Riverside Heritage Trail linking Ashfield to Bassendean, and the inclusion, if you could indulge me, I've got another minute to go, and the inclusion by inference of the historic dairy farm pasture land as part of the Bushland Forever Wetlands Heritage Site. This is definitely not. Until relatively recently, this pasture land was harvested and baled for animal fodder.
Mr. Brown, I'm going to ask you to wind up.
I've got 2 paragraphs to go, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We would argue this area stretching the length of the river from Sandy Beach Reserve to the Chapman Street Drain Timber Bridge is not and never will be part of the wetlands. This is borne out by the recently published and comprehensive Ashfield Flats Wetland Hydrological Study, which concluded the pasture land would not suffer climate change and inundation out to the year 2090 and beyond, 65 years hence. We were assured the existing pathway will remain in place in the short term, but note it will be removed within the scope and timeframes of the master plan project and will be replaced by a fence pathway 100 to 50 metres from the river into the hinterland. This space will be planted to exclude any view of the estuary. Furthermore, within the plan, the community will lose the existing pathway connection to the Ashfield Parade Roy Hook Way fishing platform to the timber walkway. Yes, this section of the pathway is occasionally affected.
Mr. Brown, I am now going to ask you to sit
I'd ask
down.
your indulgence and I'd ask...
No, Mr. Brown, you have gone well over, so please, you know, I've asked you twice now to finish up and you keep saying it's 2 paragraphs. Now, if it's only 2 paragraphs, you should have been finished by now.
I would ask that you allow me to finish in another minute.
Okay, 1 more minute, and then if you go past a minute, then I'm actually going to say no.
Yes, I'll sit down. Paradoxically, research by our members has demonstrated that neighbouring municipalities of Belmont, Bayswater, Vincent have taken a different approach when protecting almost identical riverbanks and trees. They encourage intimate community connection with the river by constructing unfenced foreshore pathways and building bankside infrastructure whilst implementing innovative and effective riverbank erosion prevention measures. As indicated within the master plan, I've nearly finished, the primary cause of erosion remains the destructive effect of waves generated by vessels plying the river. Vegetation of itself will not prevent this constant and increasing erosion, as is demonstrated within the section of riverbank erected in about 2016 to the north of the existing timber walkway in Ashfield Flats. We urge people to inspect the erosion of this section, although this is difficult because of the dense screening vegetation. However, viewed from the water, the level of continual erosion is graphic. Planted trees and shrubs are severely undercut. Now my conclusion. I represent this notice and motion on behalf of the Ashfield Community Action Network, an organisation with strong links to the town of Bassendean, which since 2008 has fervently supported the...
I'm going to now ask the seconder if they would like to speak.
We don't wish to jeopardise the grant, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seconder doesn't wish to speak. Okay, I'll ask Val if you would like to come up. Okay. Val, if you could move close to the microphone, that would be great.
Okay. It's taken a long time to bring this plan to fruition, and it's now just about to, we've got some great funding, and it's about to head into the detailed design development for the bioengineering that will help to restore the vegetation, particularly along the foreshore, which is the bone of contention, I think, which we agree on a lot of things, but I don't agree that we must enshrine what's called a heritage path. It's only been there since the 1990s, when the Bassendean Preservation Group got its first grant for the first boardwalk, and then the Swan River Trust, as someone decided to put in a bitumised path. So,
Excuse me? Do not interrupt.
however, I think that the importance of the location of that path is overstated. I think that is giving it status that it's implying that I feel it perhaps doesn't deserve when you look at the needs of the foreshore along there. Look, I think this is not the meeting to talk in detail about the design development, but I do think that there's design development to come, and I believe that probably the scope is still being edited or drafted at this point of time. I think we should give it a look at. I don't think that we should say one thing should happen just because there was a fence that went up in 2017 doesn't mean to say that this is a sneaky way of doing it again. It really isn't. If you look at the recommendations, particularly I think it's 1.2.2 or that section where it talks about how the re-establishment of vegetation is to be processed and developed, and it talks about fencing, temporary fencing, until the thing has been re-established. Now, I can't put a timeline on that because these are natural processes we're talking about, but I believe that we're getting some really good, we've got the money to get some good design going, probably the best, the latest understandings of how these things work. It's a dynamic changing scenario down there, and I think that the bit about the iconic dairy farm or historic dairy farm pasture land is a beautiful romantic notion, but it feels like a sort of a left field distraction somehow. Sure, we can talk about the farm that was there and the dairy and the cows and whether or not the
So Val, I'm going to ask you to wind up as well, okay?
Okay. But I really think that we shouldn't be that prescriptive. I think you should remain open to what's coming next.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask Mr. Brown if he'd like to close, and Mr. Brown, you will be kept strictly to time. Thank you.
What is the time frame?
It is the former councillors, by the way, who seem to take liberties with the mayor in respect to time limits.
I am familiar with this place. Thank you. What is the time I have, please?
Yes, 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay, thank you very much. Can you back it up a bit? Look, Val, thank you. You're dedicated, and I have the greatest respect for you and your crew. In respect to the path being there since the 90s, I took the opportunity to put two 90-year-old men in my car and drive around Bassendean for an hour and a half, and they were able to advise me that when the preferred method of transport was horse and cart, not car, people were walking along that section of river. And there's people in here that can recall putting gumboots on and walking along it. So it hasn't been there since 90 with respect, though.
Okay,
No.
ladies and gentlemen.
It was not a sneaky way, you say?
Okay.
No,
There's no interaction between the audience.
Okay.
You're in debate.
You're taking up some of my time. The fence, we were told by the manager of the project, that the pathway would be removed, the fence would be removed from the plan, and the pathway would remain in place. That's what we were told, a crew of people. That plan was presented to the powers that be in DBCA without that pathway penciled in. The manager was told it would not be approved unless that pathway was re-included. That's what we were told, not just to me. So when you say it's not sneaky, there's some issues there that we have real difficulty with in respect of accountability. Look, generations of people to come will miss out on the enjoyment we receive
from walking beside the river. There are alternatives. Other councils have expressed those, have put those alternatives into place. We need to explore that. That's all I'm asking, is we explore and implement alternatives. The fence should not be reinstituted, and if you do...
Okay, Mr Brown.
Yep. Okay.
Take your seat, right. Okay, I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour of Mr Brown's notice of motion, please raise your hands and keep them up. Yep. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. That's carried. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the motions. Ms Bremer, sorry, I forgot about you. Apologies. If you'd like to come and present your motion. You did foreshadow it and I completely forgot.
I'll be very quick. I do want to say that I congratulate the town of Bassendean on being a standout local government, punching well above your weight when it comes to waste management. FOGO, repair shop, share shed, waste education is really awesome in this town, and I congratulate you. So my motion is about the project that the EMRC has, which will be cited next to the FOGO processing facility at the EMRC, a really important project that doesn't deserve to be contaminated by Class 5 hazardous waste. I've just left my glasses, sorry. Okay. So my motion reads, I would hate to see the good efforts of the town of Bassendean placed at risk. So my motion is, I request that the town of Bassendean seek a full financial and legal liability risk assessment.
Can you slow down for the minute clerk? She's typing as you... Okay, you can see it on the screen as she puts it up.
I request that the town of Bassendean to seek a full financial and legal liability risk assessment from the EMRC in relation to the air pollution control residue immobilisation plant. You can just do APCR and they'll know what it is. It's actually a hazardous waste project. The APCR immobilisation project.
Okay.
Hang on a minute, haven't quite finished. And to be provided before the facility begins or becomes operational. Given that it's in receivership and isn't even operating yet. And made publicly available.
Okay.
Thank you. And I didn't bring a lobby with me, so...
Okay, so... Sorry. Okay, Ms Brimmer. Do I have a seconder for that motion, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, I've got... Holly, yep. Sorry, Holly. I'm a bit brain dead, it's getting late. So, I have a mover, I have a seconder. Do I have anyone against? Okay, I'm going to put this straight to the vote. Ladies and gentlemen, if you support this motion, could you please raise your hands? Yep. Okay, anyone against? 1. Okay, I'll declare that carried. Okay. Yes, sir. You have a motion, do you? Okay, if you come to the
Ben Woodward, still at 77 Whitfield Street, Bassendean. This follows on from my line of questioning. My motion being that council, you've got to write this down, don't you? That council staff develop and implement a communications framework to categorise resident communications as either must-know or good-to-know information and allocate promotional spending on Facebook posts.
Wait, slow down.
Sorry, categorise resident communications as either must-know or good-to-know information and allocate promotional spending on Facebook posts containing must-know information to maximise community reach and that relevant metrics are regularly reported to the CEO.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion, please, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, we have a second. Yep. Do I have anyone against? Okay, I'm going to put this straight to the vote, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour, please raise your hands with your tickets. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 11. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have hands going up and down all the time. Okay, let's say 11. Any of those against? Anyone against? Please raise your hands. We have 1. Okay, that's carried, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this brings us a... Okay. Last one. Okay. Lucky last.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose that Bassendean Council support in good faith social housing complexes in achieving the required waste management compliance by 3 strategies. Housing estates to be granted access.
I'm going to actually ask you to start again because...
I've got it all written down to give you, if you'd like, afterwards.
Okay.
Yep. That housing estates be granted access to larger bins to combat waste overspills, which are a regular occurrence in Clawton Way and Cyril Street. That housing estates to have house number stickers on all bins provided, and that housing estates to have infographic stickers on bins for ease of understanding to support our community.
Okay. Okay. I'll ask for a seconder for that motion. Has Val is seconded? Val Humphries. Do I have anyone against? Okay, I'll put that straight to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your cards. 13. All those against? 14. All those against? That's carried. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. I will say that there will be an officer's report on all of these motions. However, I chose not to involve myself in any of the dialogue, but I do note that some of these issues relate to the Local Government Act, to legislation and to property jurisdiction. So the administration will assess these notices of motion, and the first thing would be to see what is within the powers of the town and what is not. Okay, so thank you everyone for your attendance. It has been a very interesting night, so thank you one and all. And with that, I'll close the meeting at 8:15. So.
Have we got any party pies?
No.
Party, Don Yates Place.
Oh, sorry, Fiona. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.